Joining us from Elkhart, Indiana. I don't know. Oh my
Man!
Wow.
Woo!
This room is live. Hey everybody, like our new studio?
This and you can see us now, you know?
Well, if all goes well, this could be like our first video episode.
Right.
I have to make sure that we know what we're going on, which means we probably started a YouTube channel.
I wonder, do I need like makeup or something? Is there like too much glare, like too much
Let's
shine?
take until we start the podcast for you to ask that
Right,
question.
exactly.
Fascinating. So this is it. This is our new studio.
This is our new
We've
studio.
relocated to a classroom at the high school, and we got a nice little.
It's not soundproof anymore, so we're hoping that the rattle of the heater in the room isn't too much.
We'll have to wait and see what's going on. But we did. We just did our clap off at the very beginning,
Right.
and they had some reverb to it
Right.
that it did not normally have.
So we got the desk going up. This is something new for us.
And you can actually see the mugs at
Chops
the desk.
mug.
Boom.
Boop, boop, boop.
Okay, one other thing before we get rolling with our content is that we're wondering if people actually make it to the ends of the episodes, which is when we do our spiel. So we're just going to get that out of the way. It's kind of like doing your announcements right at the start of class, at the end of class. Make sure kids are in. So if you like what you hear so far, make sure you follow us on Chops Podcast on Instagram at Chops_podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Chops_podcast. And you can listen to us on Apple and Spotify.
Do people use more Apple or Spotify?
Apple.
Apple Pie.
Apple Podcasts.
Apple
Yeah,
Pie.
that's where they're getting in there. But we know both people are rolling on both. We're going to keep doing it on both. So thank you for your listening and your constant support. This week, Steve.
Oh wait, what is the date today? I just want to make sure.
Why does it matter what the date is?
So I listen to this when I'm walking later. I can remember what day it was.
Oh, so this is for Steve's notes. It is Monday the 13th.
Monday, November 13th.
Yeah.
The weekend's over. We're
That's-
back in. Full day of teaching.
But they'll listen to this on Tuesday the 21st.
21st.
Yeah, that's when they'll hear this.
Oh, that's the day before Thanksgiving break.
Yeah, so there you go.
We're kind of like the appetizer.
Appetizer. Cameron Bradley, if you're out there, that's for you.
We should get Cameron Bradley on sometime.
That would be a good
He's one of our colleagues that's in India. Hey, we do have a couple new guests lined up already.
Yeah, we do.
We have 2 primary grade teachers next week we're going to be going, which is going to be a hoot. I think it will be pretty loud, and we'll see how much we actually get accomplished, but I think it will be really great. And there are 2 rock star educators in the primary grades.
That'll be fun.
That'll be great.
Tune in.
And so we'll be able to kind of get that going.
There you go.
So I was wondering, Jack, if I can call you Jack.
Most days
What
you
do
do.
we say? Mr. Hinkle, Mr. Hinkley.
Pick your poison. Okay. What are we doing?
So I wanted to talk about the people that you come across in your life that you kind of look at them and listen to them and you go, what do you got? What's going on with you? Like in a good way.
People who draw me in.
Immediately attracted to them.
Okay.
And you're attracted to them consistently
Mm-hmm.
because of their words, their facial expression, their welcoming in, and their kind of caring for other people. They kind of transcend whatever goo is going on in the school or at work or in your daily life. They just kind of transcend and rise above. And I think about that as like teachers in the school, but then also I do think about that like students.
Mm-hmm.
And about, I think it's like a real dependability that you really come to be so appreciative of the predictability and trusting what's going to show up or who is going to show up.
Okay.
And who's going to be there. And one of the people that came to mind immediately was, we said Dr. Tim Lausenheiser. Okay, and Dr. Tim is a band guru. He's an educational guru. He just does a wonderful job leading high school workshops, teenage leadership workshops, and really calls on the students to kind of crack the code to be a better leader. And a lot of a lot of servant leadership built in, and you've worked under him, and I've worked under him, and we've been to clinics and workshops with him. And that's somebody, like, when he walks into your school, he comes in, and it's like immediately you feel like he sees you. And it's like he doesn't make eye contact and then like kind of turn the other way. Like, he goes towards you and he goes, "Hey Jack, how you doing?" Probably gives you a hug or just a great handshake, or "Hey Steve, how you doing?" And this is a guy that travels internationally.
Right.
And he goes to schools all over the place and is constantly giving workshops in addition to being a teacher at Ball State University. Yet he can come up to you and say, "Hi, how's it going?" And just always turns it on you, like, "You're amazing. My gosh, you guys are nuts. I can't believe all the good work you guys do. You band directors, oh my gosh." Just
Every time.
He goes, "You guys, you're the ones getting the Purple Hearts in the school. Like, you guys are amazing." But I think he says that to everybody he comes into. So when you see him, you're like, "Dr. Tim," and you're like so excited to see him. And then he does his thing to 60, 70, 100 kids, and the kids have this kind of like, "What do you got?" And it's always the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's always the same. And I just want to know, like, I don't know, I want to like exalt those people, like talk about those people, and then also maybe look at it with students we have like that. Are there students that you're just like really drawn to? You're just like so relieved they're there just because of the energy, right?
Yeah,
Because the energy that they spread out, and and like I'm so like curious to think about their impact on the world, looking ahead.
And trying to kind of quantify this, you're talking about people who are just like over the top with charisma.
Yes.
And over the top with their interpersonal skills and just how they speak to people and how they look at people and how they listen and how they act and walk and stand and talk.
Yes.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
And why? How they get there? That's the question?
Yeah.
Why is
like
it
what,
that way? Okay.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm thinking about Dr. Tim and why he makes me feel that way. The first thing I remember meeting him, and I met him as a kid, was that he was just funny.
It was
I feel like that was kind of his welcome mat that brought people in to the house, is that he was like quick with like witty and sharp humor, and that's kind of what got people listening. And his way of producing speech and speaking had like perfect cadences. I can remember he would just pace whatever he was saying, whether he was like delivering some sort of lecture or even just like having a one-on-one conversation with you. It was so perfectly timed.
Right. He was really good with his presentations. I'm glad you said that. The cadence, that there would be like these pregnant pauses.
Yeah.
And that he would tell some tender story about some band student long ago, and then he would just like bite his lip, and you'd be like, "What?" And then like sometimes it would almost come to the point of tears, and then he would be laughing about like what we all laugh about, like being high school teachers or high school students, and then jump in on kind of some band humor. But then also he was really good at laughing at himself.
Yeah.
Like he was carrying the message, but it wasn't his message. Like
Right.
This is stuff that other people have thought about and other scientists and therapists have thought about, and he was just kind of the
Yes.
post office kind of delivering it to you.
That's true.
He never said, "This is what I think." This is kind of like, this is how it is. And
I also think the word per fluff ratio was through the roof.
gotcha.
And I think about other people in my life who I've met who have similar vibes to Tim, that whenever they speak, I know it's serious, or I know it's worth listening to, and I don't have to sift through
It's like Kevin Malone.
Kevin Malone with a doctorate,
Yeah.
right? Dr. Malone.
Right.
No, it's true, but I never felt like there was any sort of fluff or any thing that we could get rid of. It was always pertinent, and every word he spoke meant something.
Right.
What do you remember? What do you got?
I do remember him coming into high school at Concord and going to that training as a high school student and crying at the end of it, being a freshman in high school.
You cried in high school?
Yeah. He had the whole band crying. He had the whole. It was for the whole band. It wasn't just juniors and seniors.
Kids were soft back then, dude.
They came in and he like brought us all in, and everybody was like hugging.
Wow.
And crying.
Wow. Okay.
And this was 40 years ago.
Sure.
So, but I do remember that. And then I just remember how funny he was.
Yes.
And he's kind of a goofball. But he's smart goofball. And I just kind of always wanted to be like, what do you got? What do you got? Like, how do I get that? Like, I want that. And I'm intrigued by people like that. When you're in their presence, you're like, you got something, And maybe sometimes, I don't know, there's another really dynamic person that went through here at Concord High School. I don't know if you know his name. His name was Tom Kahn. And Tom Kahn was a football coach. And he was here in the 80s, like in the early 80s. My brother, Andy, had him as a coach. And then he did leave teaching kind of at the high point of his coaching career and went into business.
Okay.
And he still lives in Elkhart. And just one of those people that, hey, how you doing, Steve? Oh, it's so good to see you. How are your mom and dad? Like, every time, it's just kind of like one of these bigger than life, like, presence and personality. And you always wanted a piece of that.
Huh.
And he did teach business in the school. And he was a coach, but he was like this beloved coach. But he just, like, when you talked, you like, yeah. And I was a band kid, and he was a football coach, and I wanted what something he was having.
That's cool.
But I still see him as an adult, like, around the community, and it's the same thing, like, all the time. It's always like that. How's your brother? Oh my gosh, how's your parents? Oh, you guys do such beautiful work. It's just, and then, so I do think about that, like somebody like that, who wasn't even like my coach, who was like impactful.
And that was who he was, is that he just got out there with all the kids. He was like pro
He was
kid,
in there. He was
wasn't
in the kids.
That's awesome.
The kids loved him.
Was his wife
Kathy Kahn.
I had her.
Yes.
Okay. There you go. I was not around
Right.
for him.
Right.
Okay. But she was a lovely person too.
Another person I thought of, and he's no longer living, God bless his soul, was my junior high principal, Roger Sweisberger.
There you go.
And Roger Sweisberger, they named the gym after him at the junior high, and he was called the captain at the junior high. But he would stand at the door to the junior high, and he would hug every kid as they came in. He would hug them.
Wow.
And it didn't matter who you were. He just hugged them. He put their arm, hey, how you doing? And he was a big guy. He was a full-figured guy. Kind of had like this, he didn't have big facial hair kind of thing going on, but he's always in a suit and just had this big, genuine smile on his face and just like brought kids in and gave you a hug and just wondered, hey, how you doing? And it didn't matter if you were like connected to the school or you were not connected to the school, you were struggling with academics or you're struggling with behavior, you were just in
Getting
there.
a hug.
Every day.
Every
Like he would
kid,
be
every
there.
day.
Every
Wow.
kid, every day. He would be at the front door.
Wow.
As
Okay.
kids came in. That was my memory of my junior high principal. And I thought he was exceptional. And I mean, that really like left a mark on me, thinking about that kind of personality of, like that's how I should be, or that's how teachers should be.
Nice.
Like kind of putting out that vibe. So, what do you got? Like, what do you think of?
I think of my college band director,
What's his name?
Michael Colburn.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough that during my time at Butler, we had a new hire for the director of bands, and Michael Colburn, Colonel Michael Colburn, was the director of the Marine Band, the U.S. Marine Band, like one of the best bands in the world. And he came here to Butler, and I was like, oh boy, I better start practicing.
Yeah.
But he, even, like, not as a musician, just like as a person, like the way he carried himself was very attractive. Is that, I mean, obviously if you're a Marine, you do have to stand a little differently, right? And I'm sure he was trained in some of those things, but just the way he presented himself and how he spoke to the band and how he spoke to the students was always very professional. And he did have a little bit of humor, and he was still able to be authentic to himself.
Yeah.
And was very inviting. And I took conducting lessons with him, private conducting lessons, Just me and him in his office, like every week. Yeah, that was my look every time I walked in there.
That's intense.
It was
He's
intense.
like a high roller.
He was, and I had no clue what I was doing. But he was very demanding, like in a good way. And he was not, again, like he didn't like speak fluff. He got to the point, and I appreciated that of him. And I think people liked him. And he had something really good to offer for Butler when he was there. And obviously, like a really good musician. He was like an incredible euphonium player. And he played for us a few times, and he'd play in, the staff ensembles whenever those happened, in the chamber ensembles. And I just remember having a good experience there and feeling like I was really getting pushed. But he still had something like human about him that was like fun and authentic and real and very intelligent, bright, well-spoken. He checked a lot of boxes in terms of a leader, and that was cool. So I want to be more like him.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm cut out for the Marines, so. There you go. So all this to say, why are we talking about this?
I think it stemmed from a conversation that my wife and I were having about.
Shout out Kathy.
Shout out Kathy with a K. Whoop whoop. Who are the people that are attractive to you in your life, and then why? And then since we spend a lot of time as teachers, like, are we being attractive to our students? And then what kind of students are being attractive to each other or to their teachers? Like, kind of putting out that light.
You know, you said this to me off air, but I think it was pretty, was hitting the nail on the head, being consistent.
Yeah.
And I know that's a skill we're teaching our kids every day, of how to be consistent and how to hold yourself to that expectation. But I think that getting that as modeled for them is a valuable thing too. And who knows what they get modeled for them.
Right.
Who knows what they see in just their friends, family, whoever, like what's going on. And I think as a leader, like being consistent. I mean, I know we talked about that like as a very young age, like when I was in my music ed classes in college, like consistency was always a big thing. But it's different when you are up in front of the same group of kids every day and you have a certain level of expectation for them. Like, my goodness, you better hold yourself to that expectation. Yeah. And being consistent, I mean, you have to be consistent in so many ways. And maybe this is like low-hanging fruit, but showing up for the kids every day is like a must.
Yeah.
And not just your attendance, but your approach and how you look at them and how you speak to them and how you stand and how open your eyes are. And even if you're tired, you got to push through it and figure it out. And I think that there are many opportunities for people to be tired throughout the day, but in a job like ours, things don't go well for you if you look tired every day.
Do you find yourself thinking about being consistent? Because as a teacher, I see you as a teacher that is consistent, and that your vibe and or attitude and or effort seems to be, it is consistent. So do you think, is that something that's in your mind? Like that you're trying to work through the scaries in your head, like you're anxious about this, or you physically don't feel good, or you're like tired, or you're like really distracted by some behavior or some skill in your class, lack of skill, or something going on, or something that has gone on with the schedule, or
Constantly.
Yeah.
Now, for me, it started more big picture as a younger teacher. Like, I was more focused on how is my energy? Like, am I energetic? Am I looking at the kids?
Right.
Am I standing up correctly with good posture? But now it's like much more like honed in on tiny nitpicky things of consistency. Like, I know what the lesson plan is going into like jazz band per se, right? And I know that I really want to fix this, and sometimes I might get frustrated, and I know I can be better, and I'm like, okay, I have to reel this one in. Like, am I approaching this correctly because I'm expecting it to be bad? Am I expecting it to be good? What's happening here? So it's like the consistency now, I've like honed in on very small details that I'm clocking myself still, but I'm really aware that I can be different in certain ways, in certain smaller ways, in how I approach a certain part of the lesson plan, and how I talk to a kid that I know hasn't turned in assignments. And I'm trying to hone in those consistencies, and I have how I want it to go in my head, and and I want to make sure that that is what is reality as I go through. How about you?
Yeah, I think about it, and I think I surprised at how much I fluctuate through the day, or how much I have to try to keep it.
Self-regulate
Yeah,
with what? Everything?
yeah, my own like how I feel physically,
Yeah.
right? How I feel about my expectation with the class, and like you said, either they're better than what I thought it was going to be, or it wasn't up to what I thought it was going to be, and like how to be productive in my response,
Yeah.
and be
That's the tough one.
like be productive and help them have a better experience and get better, even if it's really good or even if it's really bad.
Yeah.
And then, but I know that my frustration does come up. Like it came up today in one of my classes, and it wasn't a huge deal, but I could tell by the way I was talking, and I could tell by the body posture of some of the students I was working with. I was like, this isn't hitting right.
Right.
Like in my own, I'm not doing a good job of regulating this. And, you know, I'm only human, we're only human, and so you do kind of ride that. But I think that it's kind of interesting to think about that, riding the ups and downs, and then wanting to kind of smooth that out, but then trying to be authentic and not like trying to just throw a attaboy, attagirl, good job,
Yeah.
wow, look at you.
Yeah.
But, you know, being honest with where you are, and have the energy stay up.
That's true. And the nice thing, or maybe I guess it works both ways, but when we have classes where we've taught the same kids 3 or 4 years, they know what's coming, and you can throw some, lighthearted shade
Yeah.
at your jazz band.
Yes.
But you probably can't do that with your piano class that you've known for 2 months,
Right.
So you might have to respond differently to those guys
Right.
than you do these guys. But I think that whole idea of consistency, if we're talking about this overarching thing of being inviting, right? Consistency is probably like one of the first steps
Right.
in a long-term professional relationship. Yeah, I do think about that a lot. I was thinking about that today.
And it's interesting that I think we could talk about this and then go back to some of those pillars that those pillar people that we're talking about. But so then if you're talking about best practices of knowing your content, knowing your students, and knowing your teaching, but so you're thinking about those things, but also you're thinking about how you're coming across, which is like it's like the umbrella over everything.
Right.
And it's like, sometimes it's really hard to be present because you're so focused on wanting to make it correct, and you're trying to adjust it where the ship is going, but you're not actually in the ship. Like
Yes.
you just, like as band directors, you do get a reprieve, because if you're going through a piece of music and the band plays for 30 seconds, you don't have to talk. And then you, as the band is playing, you can either check out, right?
No, you can.
You can. You can check out and get to the end of the rep and be like, I got nothing. That's not where we want to be, obviously. But you're in that repetition that they're going through for 30 seconds, and then maybe you're making a note in your score, or you're just making a mental note, or you're writing something up on the board. But as it's going on, when those 30 seconds are done, you know exactly what you're going to say. But you just were in the present moment with them, but you're already formulating something for the future. It sounds kind of like, it does sound kind of like difficult when I think about it, like when I say it like that.
Yeah.
But I think we probably do that in a lot of ways in our lives.
Sure.
That's how we converse with people. Like, I think you're crazy, and then I'm like, let me tell you why you're crazy. Right. So you're always taking an input and then formulating how that output is going to come, but then you're not only formulating like what you want to say, like the good and the bad and the ugly.
Yes.
But then also what you're going to comment on. Like, are you going to find something that's not as good and trying to get that better? Or you're going to try, maybe the vibe of the room isn't as great as it could be, and you're trying to find something really great. So you're going to sacrifice the not as good for the good of the class to say, that was amazing. and like be authentic about it, and you're not like blowing smoke. You're giving them something real, but you're helping craft the moment.
I like made that cringe face because it's so real, but there's always so many directions you can go with that.
Right.
I mean, I was again like thinking about that stuff today. Like as the stuff's playing, I mean, oh my gosh, as the kids are playing, you hear the good, you hear the bad, you see the kid who's like not looking at their music, and then like something happens behind you, or the announcements come on, and you're trying to hear that, and then you're thinking about what you're gonna say back to him next, but then you hear this wrong note over here that you feel like you need to correct right now, but then if you don't, then you're gonna lose these kids over. Dude, it just doesn't stop.
Right.
And you're constantly given that choice, and that's like what separates the master teachers from everyone else, is like how they handle those decisions and like where they go from there.
Right. And then always maintaining that sense of, I'm not going to say calm, because I think you can certainly live your life excited.
You certainly don't live your life calm when you teach.
Thank you. But it doesn't. But I.
Oh gosh. Wrong pipe. Wrong pipe. I could feel that one coming. That was not going to be good. Okay. Nope. Okay, back to you in the studio,
Okay.
Steve.
So not calm, but I expected.
You're not going so far off script you're losing the kids.
Right.
You're staying on the script, but you're keeping something engaging, but you're also keeping it productive. And then you get to pick your tools, whether your tools are funny or your tools are demanding or your tools are inspiring. I mean, we kind of have those like dangling at the belt that we just kind of pull out and pick for different things for what the kids need. And that's what those people were so good at, is that they always knew which tool fit the best situation. And all of their tools were sharpened so well that they always worked.
Yeah. They were the ultimate professional because they said the right thing at the right time.
Yes.
It was always right.
It was always right. And it was never like, maybe you should have said that. There's no second guessing when it came to those people. And I know I second guess myself every day, all the time. And I know my tools are not as sharp as theirs. I mean, you want to talk about inspiring. Right. Those guys are the ones
that you always have. Yeah, you always have it right to go. So there, that dependability factor, that the people around you can depend on you and your mood.
Yes.
And your facial expressions and your interest in them. They can count on that, and they can appreciate that, and they can also feel at ease when they're around you.
Yeah, both in a personal, like one-on-one level, but also in a leadership group level. Like if that person's in front of your group, you feel comfortable.
Right, and I think about those people that I had mentioned at the beginning of the episode, and certainly as like a 12 or 13-year-old boy in the junior high, kind of coming of age, like in self-awareness.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like a really great figure to have around, and a great figure that helped kind of knock off the edge of some of adolescent behavior.
Yeah.
And being obstinate maybe, or just being hyper, or being dramatic, but kind of having that figure that kind of helped put out a calm sheen on everything.
So now this conversation is making me think that I need to find some other tools to use in the classroom.
Like what? What kind of tools do you think of?
Well, I kind of think about those people that were really inspiring, like Dr. Tim.
Yeah.
And he was like really good at like getting quiet, pulling back.
Yeah.
I don't do that a lot. And I'm not saying I necessarily should, because I think I should still be myself, but just like having more options, because maybe I only have a couple tools, and then if I need a certain tool but don't have it, I try and use a different tool, and then it kind of works, but like not as well. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's my takeaway from this episode.
Yeah, I think that's good. The pulling back, creating a space for silence. Now, also, Dr. Tim did, like the ways that we've seen him, he did similar lesson plans. And so it wasn't really a stand-up comedy, but it was almost stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
But it was interactive with students.
Yes.
And he had like nuance, but he had tens of stories. Like, and certain, he would talk about certain student behavior, and he could link it to a student.
Yes.
That made you laugh or cry.
Yes. And
Or-
you and I could probably still recite some of those stories.
Yes. And it was like amazing, and
Yes.
you believed them. You're like, yeah. I do think, yeah, having that repertoire of
as they say.
having the different tools to pull out to use is so. It's probably something that, I mean, since you're closer to the beginning of your career than I am to the beginning of my career, excuse me, that you noticed probably when you were student teaching, you know, when Jack Hinkle was teaching School of rock history, history of rock and roll, that's probably the thing that as an early teacher, that's probably so, you're focused on like classroom management, like in this.
I wish
like,
I was.
But you just don't have a lot of tools.
Oh, no.
You don't have a lot to fall back on. And the same discussion I was having yesterday with my wife, because we traveled over the weekend, so we had a lot of time in the car, was thinking about my early days in Kentucky, and I had zero tools, and I didn't know I had zero tools. I don't necessarily think I'm overloaded with abundance of great tools right now, but certainly that at that time I had like almost no tools, and I think the only tool I thought I had was trying to be somebody else, which equals no tool. That I couldn't be somebody else. I couldn't be my high school band director. I couldn't be my college director. I couldn't be that person. And so what that created was this haphazard, half-baked young adult who was trying to say the right things but didn't believe it, and was like trying to be on but didn't really know what on was, and it did not work. I mean, we've talked about some of that.
Sure.
And I could not, it didn't work.
Well, and that's what every new teacher feels. I don't think there's any first-year teacher that gets home from class that day and is like, wow,
Right.
that was a good day. Like, no one thinks that. Because you kind of put this image in my head, we're talking about tools, and it's like, it makes me feel like when you walk into a classroom, it's kind of like a building's falling apart and you're trying to save kids, right? That's kind of what it can feel like. And because you're trying to teach the content, you're trying to, AKA, fix the building, but you're trying to manage people, AKA, save the kids, right? So you're walking into a building that's falling apart and you're trying to rescue kids. And when you're talking about our tools, you're coming in as a first-year teacher and you've got like one Phillips head screwdriver.
Right.
And you're supposed to fix everything.
Right.
And that's like not going to happen. So you're trying to develop all these tools as you go, but you're also like hanging on to the kids and you're trying to get the content going, and trying to multitask all that stuff at the beginning is not going to go well.
Right.
And it's somehow like those people, the Dr. Tims and the Tom Kahn was his name, like those guys, I think they did have something like natural. And I don't think that it was only natural. Like, I'm sure that they like were self-aware enough to try and hone those skills and know their strengths and how to cover for weaknesses. But that stuff is like fascinating. Like how do you get so drawn into those people? And what can we do as teachers to get kids drawn into us? And Tim had the saying, and that maybe he didn't come up with it, but like, people don't care what you know till they know that you care.
Right.
And I'm sure that has a big thing to do with it. Because if
They
you
don't
were
care what you know until they know that you care. Right.
Yes.
Care or no. Right.
care, no
Right.
care, right? So if you walk into a room with Tim, whether or not he talks to you, he just had like, you knew that he cared because of how he carried himself. And I'm sure the same was true with Tom Kahn.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that a lot of kids can feel that way, but it's not always a like mandate. Like you're so charismatic and you're so good at what you do that the kids are just completely bought in right away. Like I don't think we're there yet, but I want to be on that chase and figure out how to find that.
Right. And then the flip side of that would be the students that exhibit that behavior. And you can probably go through in your mind some students like that I've had in recent years, they were so consistent and so welcoming of everybody that it was like unbelievable.
Right.
They'd be like 17, 18-year-olds that weren't politicians, but they could have been. Just because they reached out, though, to every pocket, like in my world, your world, the band world, and were so consistent in the way that they reached out to other students, and so consistent on how they looked and how they acted and what their facial expression was and what their response was to getting something done. It was always, yeah, sure, let's go. Absolutely. Yeah, great. It was like never off. It was like unbelievable. And I think that's so cool that you have students that, just shine.
Right.
And they don't get caught up in their own thoughts, and maybe they do. Maybe Dr. Tim does. But these students, maybe they go home and go, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not doing a good job in this class, and I'm not taking care of this. And maybe they live like that, but it was so consistent and so positive towards other people and so appreciative of their teachers. It was like, wow. And it was never like, hey, look at me, I'm big guy on campus. It was always just kind of live their life in a humble way that drew other people to them. I was like, wow.
Those students and Tim, now that I'm thinking about it, always exemplified gratitude.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like Tim, and I still do this, but like Tim taught the skill of like writing thank you cards. Like he always professed that he had a box of thank you cards at his desk at all times, and he would just like give those away. And you and I have both received thank you cards or some sort of like nice little card from a kid, and like you and I still have them.
Yep.
Smile file, right?
Smile file.
That's our thing. We both have a little. Mine's in a gift bag somewhere in the office, and you've got your little drawer, and there's just like random papers and some of them are like, with a scrap paper that a kid did, over a random time, and some are actual cards, and they all say really nice things. And I know you and I like to keep those so we can, if we're having a off day, we go back in and look like, okay, here's what's going on. Yeah. And the kids that are kind of on that level were the quickest to give away their gratitude. And I think that's what a great skill. What a great skill. And I would not be a good thank you card giver unless it was for Dr. Tim. I never did those. And then once I kind of was in his circle and the swags at Music for All, that camp, I got it. Right. I understood it. And so I give those out now. But I think about those kids that send emails or just talk to you and be like, hey, like, thanks for doing that.
Yeah. And
you can think of like a couple of moments in your life that you've had those, and I can too. And like, those make such a difference when kids were able to do that. And that separates the kids from everyone else who, instead of thinking about what other people did for them, is like, what can they get from other people? Like, that's kind of like the bar line. And getting above that, I mean, that makes a huge difference, is this idea of gratitude. That was cool.
Right. And then they were wonderful. They were just then, because of all those skills, they were wonderful leaders.
Yeah, those kids
because they never put themselves at the front of the equation. They thought, like, what needs to be done? And then I'm like, wow, that is top notch. And that would be inspiring, like, to look at them to see what they're doing.
Yeah. Even
though I was their teacher, like, oh boy, am I living like that?
So how do we take kids there?
We bring in Dr. Tim once a week.
We do. Oh, not once a week. I was going to say we do bring him in once a year.
Right.
But I think that does make a difference. Okay.
I think you do. I think you bring up those figures to your students. I brought up Mr. Schweisberger. I brought up Dr. Tim. I don't know if I brought up Tom Kahn, Coach Kahn, but bring up those moments and those teachers or those administrators that made an impact on you. Say, this is what happened. Also, I I want to do that to the students. Like one person on our staff, like is our director of our Performing Arts Center, Scott Preheim.
I was just thinking about him.
In that Scott Preheim is jack of all trades, but he keeps our Performing Arts Center at a really great level, audio and visually, and is the sound guy and just takes care of so many details in our school and specifically in our department. But he's just kind of the guy that, like, you and I have a concert coming up on Wednesday. He was already like talking to me last week. We were talking brass tacks about what was going on.
Yep.
Something that he led. Like, it wasn't me like asking. It was like, okay, so this is what you want. And then today he was like, okay, just want to make sure this is on stage where you want it. This is what I'm thinking. I'm like, yeah, but that's the kind of way, like, he kind of beats you to the problem.
Yes, he does.
I know that he's helped you out at different
I
times.
was just thinking about that too. Like, this was like 2 years ago. We had a concert, and I had to sub in your band, even though I was a staff member, on guitar. And I'm using the same setup that I've had since I was in high school, which is not too great, and it's pretty beat up. And I got out to the stage, and I noticed like one of the cables going into my guitar pedal was like spick and span brand new. And I talked to him. I was like, "What? Did you give me a new one?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, we just made it when we had some free." I'm like, "You made it? You made me a new cable?" He's like, "Yeah, it wasn't that bad." So he's just all over that stuff all the time, and that's how he kind of gives away what he has, and that's why people are kind of drawn to him.
Yes.
In our department, and why he is
Right.
a linchpin in so many ways.
Right. So I think in answer to your, like, how do we help students get there? I think that we acknowledge that when it's there. We say, by the way, you just saw this happen.
Yes.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true.
And be on the lookout. It's great when it happens in your classroom or in your department.
Yeah.
But then if it's not, then maybe try to apply something in your life, maybe somebody they don't know, but give them an example of like how that came across your life.
Yeah. Well, and Dr. Tim always said oh gosh, how did he say it? It was like, all you are worth is what you can give away.
Yeah.
It was something like that, a little more profound, because
Right.
he's Dr. Tim. But that there is some truth to that, like what you're worth is what you can give away, and that, because you can give away so many things and so much all the time and just give, and that's kind of what people remember, and people remember how they made you feel from that stuff, and then it encourages other people to do that more because they're aware of it. So it's giving, it just kind of keeps giving, right?
Yes.
So that's the lesson plan this week.
That's the lesson
Teach the
plan.
kids to give it all away. That's good though, because when we do have that concert on Wednesday, we can kind of
We can use that as an example.
talk to the kids about that they're very fortunate. No, that's true. That's good. What's like the wraparound? I need a title for this episode. What we got?
Do you see what I see?
Do you see what I see? There you go.
Oh my
We'll
gosh.
get there. Okay, well, we're trying to pare the episodes down, right?
Yeah, we are. Because if you're driving 20 minutes to work, one way, turn around, 20 minutes back, we're at 43 minutes right now. We had been rolling in an hour.
Yeah.
So,
We don't even want to listen to ourselves talk for an hour.
no, that's a
You.
lot of words.
Why say many word?
But,
If you
so,
want to trick. That's true. I got to go return a leaf blower. I bought a leaf blower yesterday, and I bought the battery-powered one. Dude, that was a mistake. Those things last like 4 minutes.
tell me, Jack.
I need to return it and get one of the corded ones.
You can say one of them corded.
One
I
of the
need to
corded
get one of
ones.
them corded
I
ones.
need one of the
Wait,
corded ones.
I like corded
I
ones.
love-
Okay.
I love cookies.
Okay. Wait, are you sure it was charged?
I used the battery from my weed eater because they shared the same battery pack, so I didn't even use the new battery that came with. I pulled that sucker right off the charger. It was charged.
And it was a leaf blower. Put the battery in that you've used on your weed eater.
Yeah, but it was already charged.
But you've used that battery before.
Yeah.
And then you tried to use it on the leaf blower, 4 minutes. So you think, but did you try the? Okay, it doesn't matter. Is it? Did you buy it at a reputable store, or did you buy it like a Dollar Tree?
No, I bought it at Menards. It's Black & Decker, man. It's like legit stuff.
Well, that should have been lasting all day.
I think, I looked it up later. It said 15-minute battery life. 15-minute blow time for the leaf blower. I was like, no, I can't. This ain't right. I'm not doing this.
Okay, so you're gonna go do that.
I'm gonna go return that. Yeah.
I'm gonna take the dog for a walk. Gosh, is it dark?
It will be by the time we get home. I know, it's great.
The dog is going, Dad.
Milk
Walk.
bone?
Yeah.
Okay, so next week we're gonna have some guests on the show. Multiple. This is our first time with two
There'll
people.
be 4 of us in the episode.
And we're gonna go to the editing studio, and we're gonna see how this looks, see how this sounds, and we'll see if it's a keeper. See what's going on here. But I kind of like the desk. I mean, the desk is nice. The desk is good. I like setting my arms. Oh, that was loud. I like setting my arms down on something. Before it was like on my lap, and I got to reach down for my coffee.
Right.
It's good.
And I have my shoes off, so I don't. No, this is good. Okay, so we already did our intro at the beginning.
Yeah, but go follow us on all the stuff if you haven't. We're almost at 300 followers on Instagram. You could be the one. You could be our second reviewer, and you could be. Oh, we had a lot of ratings because we're like ballers like
Really?
that. We're in double digits of ratings.
Well, so this week, go out, see what you can see, and hear what you can hear, and do what you can do.
Change the world.
Change the world!
And come to
Chop
the
Station!
jazz concert on Wednesday. We'll be swinging.
Okay, for Steve Peterson.
And Jack and Cole.
We're out of here.
Yeah.